Hello everyone. Welcome back to my B&B spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. The atmosphere at Forrester Creations had been uncomfortable for days, but no one could have predicted that one envelope in Wyatt Spencer's hands was about to tear apart Dylan's carefully protected life, and possibly destroy whatever future she and Will Spencer still had together. Wyatt had returned to Los Angeles expecting to spend time with his family, check on Will, and understand why everyone seemed so worried about the young woman who had suddenly become such an important part of his brother's life. Instead, he'd stumbled onto something he couldn't ignore. There had always been questions about Dylan. Where she came from, why she avoided conversations about her family, why her expression changed whenever someone pushed too hard into her past. Will had noticed those moments too, but his feelings made him willing to accept her silence. He believed that if she truly cared for him, she'd tell him everything when she was ready. Wyatt was not nearly as patient. He'd watched his family survive too many secrets to believe silence was harmless. So when the details of Dylan's past failed to match what she told Will, Wyatt quietly began searching for answers. What he uncovered led him to a DNA test. Now, standing in the Forrester Creations office with the results sealed inside a white envelope, Wyatt realized that opening it could change several lives forever. Will walked into the room and immediately noticed the tension on his brother's face. "What's going on?" he asked. Wyatt didn't answer right away. He simply looked toward Dylan, who stood near the desk with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her face had gone pale the second she saw the envelope. That reaction told Wyatt everything he needed to know. She recognized what he was holding, or at least understood what it might reveal. Will followed his brother's stare toward Dylan, then back again. "Wyatt, what is this?" His voice was sharper now. Dylan stepped forward. "Will, maybe we should talk somewhere else." He turned toward her, confused. "Talk about what?" She opened her mouth but nothing came out. "It's about who she really is," Wyatt said finally. The room went completely silent. Will stared at his brother as though he'd misheard him. "What are you talking about?" Wyatt held up the envelope. "I'm talking about Dylan's DNA." Panic flooded Dylan's eyes. "You had no right." "Maybe I didn't," Wyatt said, his expression hardening. "But Will had a right to know he wasn't getting the whole truth." Will looked between them, the confusion on his face slowly replaced by anger. "Someone better explain this right now." Dylan moved toward him. "Will, please listen to me before you listen to a piece of paper." He stepped backward. It was a tiny movement, but Dylan felt it like a door slamming shut between them. "Why would I need to hear you before I see that report?" he asked. "What are you afraid it says?" Her silence changed his expression again. This was no longer just a strange accusation from Wyatt. Dylan knew something. What the results showed. Wyatt opened the envelope. For a moment he simply stared at the page. Even though he'd suspected there was a secret, seeing the genetic findings in front of him made the situation frighteningly real. He read the relevant lines again before looking up. "The DNA confirms a biological connection Dylan never told us about." Will's jaw tightened. "Connection to who?" Wyatt hesitated. "Don't," Dylan whispered. He looked at her. "You had plenty of opportunities." Then he turned back to his brother. "The family history Dylan gave you doesn't match the DNA. She has a direct biological connection to a family already tied to everything happening around the Forresters and the Spencers." Will looked as though the floor had shifted beneath him. Dylan lunged for the report, but Wyatt pulled it out of reach. "Give it to me," she demanded. "No. Not until Will knows what you've been hiding." "Stop!" Will's voice thundered across the office. Both of them froze. He stared directly at Dylan, his eyes wet, his face filled with anger. "I don't care about Wyatt's investigation right now. I care about you. Look at me and tell me the truth. Did you lie to me about who you are?" Dylan could barely breathe. "I didn't lie about everything." Will gave a bitter laugh. "That wasn't my question. Did you lie to me?" She finally lowered her eyes. "Yes." The admission hit him harder than anything written on the report. He turned away, both hands braced against the desk, struggling to control himself. Dylan approached carefully. "Will, please. I wanted to tell you." He spun around. "When? After I fell completely in love with you?" After I defended you against everyone? After I started believing everyone else was wrong about you? Dylan flinched at the word love. Until that moment, she hadn't realized how much hope she'd placed in his feelings for her. Now those same feelings were fueling his anger. Wyatt tried to calm him. Will. No, Wyatt. You wanted me to know, so let me know everything. He held out his hand. Wyatt gave him the report. Will's eyes moved rapidly across the page as he processed it. The exact genetic connection was complicated, but one fact was undeniable. Dylan had not entered his life carrying the history she claimed. Her DNA linked her to a past she deliberately concealed, and Wyatt's research suggested she had changed key details about herself before ever growing close to Will. Suddenly, every strange conversation, every unexplained disappearance, every moment she'd refused to discuss her family looked different. You knew, Will whispered. Dylan shook her head. Not all of it. But you knew enough. Yes. And you still let me fall for you. I fell for you too, she said, crying now. His anger exploded. Then why didn't you trust me? The family arrives. Out in the hallway, Katie Logan heard Will shouting and rushed inside. Bill Spencer arrived moments later, having received a message from Wyatt. Katie took one look at Will, Dylan, and the report in his hands and knew something terrible had happened. Will? She asked softly. He didn't answer. Bill turned to Wyatt. What did you find? Wyatt explained that he'd uncovered inconsistencies in Dylan's identity and background, and had pursued DNA verification to confirm it. Bill's expression grew colder with every sentence. Katie, meanwhile, kept watching Dylan. There was something about the fear on her face that made Katie wonder if the secret was more painful than malicious. Bill demanded to see the report. After reading it, even he was briefly speechless. You came into my son's life knowing this? Dylan wiped her tears. I didn't come into Will's life because of his family. Then why hide your identity? Because I knew exactly what would happen if people discovered the truth. You're proving me right, Bill said, stepping toward her. Will moved between them, and for a moment Dylan's heart lifted. Maybe he was still protecting her. But he turned to his father instead. Dad, don't. This is between me and Dylan. Those words hurt her even more than his anger had. He wasn't defending their relationship. He was claiming the right to end it himself. Katie stepped closer to Dylan. Tell us the whole story. No more half-truths. Dylan looked around the room, Bill furious, Katie concerned, but Will was the only expression that truly mattered to her. So she finally began to talk. Dylan's truth. She admitted she'd known for some time that questions surrounded her biological family. Parts of her childhood had been built on incomplete stories, changed names, and adults who insisted certain subjects were never to be discussed. When she eventually started searching for answers, she found clues connecting her biological history to people whose names carried enormous weight in Los Angeles. She became terrified that if the truth came out, people would judge her by blood instead of by the woman she'd become. When she met Will, she never expected their connection to turn serious. At first, withholding the truth felt temporary. Then he began trusting her, confiding in her. He made her feel like she could build a life that had nothing to do with the secrets behind her. That should have been when you told me, Will said. I know. No, you don't. Because you kept choosing another day. Dylan nodded through her tears. Every time I tried, I thought I was about to lose you. She looked directly into his eyes. Now I think I already have. Will looked away. Katie's eyes filled with sympathy, but she knew she couldn't fix this for them. Love could survive a shocking revelation. Trust was much harder to rebuild. Then Wyatt spoke up again. The DNA isn't the only problem. Will turned slowly. What else? Wyatt placed several printed records beside the report. His research suggested that someone connected to Dylan's past had been tracking developments involving the Spencer and Forrester families, dates, contacts, unexplained communications. He couldn't prove Dylan was responsible, but he could prove her hidden identity was part of something larger. Dylan stared at the papers in horror. I've never seen those. Convenient, Bill muttered. I'm telling the truth. Will picked up one of the pages. Then who was watching us? I don't know. Who else knows who you really are? Dylan hesitated and Will's face fell. Oh my God, he whispered. There's more. It isn't what you think. You keep saying that. I was trying to protect you. From who? Before Dylan could answer, footsteps sounded from the hallway. Everyone turned. Electra appeared in the doorway, having clearly heard enough to understand something devastating had happened. Her eyes went straight to Will. His anger, the report in his hands, Dylan's tears. What happened? She asked. Nobody answered. Then she saw the words DNA analysis across the top of the page, and looked at Dylan. What did you do? This has nothing to do with you, Dylan said, her expression hardening. Electra stepped into the room. If it hurts Will, it has something to do with me. Electra, please, Will said. She stopped. She knew that tone. He was barely holding himself together. Katie quickly explained what Wyatt had uncovered, and what the DNA had confirmed. Electra stared at Dylan in disbelief. So everyone who questioned your story wasn't imagining things. Don't act like you know what I've lived through, Dylan snapped. I know we trusted you. And you think he never heard that before? That stopped Electra cold. Will slammed the report onto the desk. Enough. Both of you. Silence again. He turned toward Dylan. I need one answer. Forget the DNA. Forget Wyatt. Forget my dad. Forget Electra. Was what happened between us real? Dylan looked stunned. Will. Was it real? Yes. All of it. Yes. Then tell me something only the real Dylan would tell me. She began sobbing. The woman you loved is real. My feelings are real. The nights we talked when you couldn't sleep were real. Every time I told you that you didn't have to prove yourself to your family, that was real. Every time I wanted to kiss you but stopped because I was scared of what it meant, that was real. I didn't fake loving you. Will's anger briefly disappeared, replaced by heartbreak. That's what makes this worse. Her face crumbled. If none of it mattered, I could walk away and never think about you again. But it mattered. You mattered. She reached for his hand. He pulled it away. Don't. That single word devastated her. One more thing. Bill watched in silence. Even he understood Will needed to make this decision without interference. Are you ending us? Dylan whispered. Will didn't answer right away. His eyes moved to the report, then to Wyatt, Katie, Bill, and Electra, and finally back to her. Everything about their relationship now felt contaminated by questions. Yet beneath the anger, he still loved her. That was the cruelest part. I don't know who I was falling in love with, he said. You were falling in love with me. Then why didn't you let me know you? I was afraid. So was I. Will shouted. I was afraid of getting hurt again. I was afraid everyone was right when they said I was moving too fast. But I trusted you anyway. His voice quieted. You didn't give me the same trust. I'm sorry. I believe you. She looked up, hopeful. But it's still not enough. He stepped back. For now, whatever we were, it ends here. No, she said, shaking her head. Will, please. I can't look at you without wondering what else you haven't told me. Dylan rushed toward him. There's one more thing. Everyone froze. Wyatt's expression sharpened. Of course there is, Bill muttered. Dylan ignored him, her eyes locked on Will. The reason I didn't tell you everything wasn't only because I was afraid you'd reject me. Someone warned me not to. Will stared at her. Who? She swallowed hard. The person who knows the complete truth about my DNA. Wyatt stepped closer. You know who that is? Yes. Then say the name. Her breathing turned uneven. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. She looked down at a single message. Don't tell them. Her face went white. What is it? Will asked immediately. Nothing. He gave her a devastated look, and she realized what she'd just done. Another instinctive lie. Slowly she handed him the phone. He read the message, then looked up. Who sent this? I don't know. The number's blocked. Wyatt took the phone. They know you're here. They know you're talking. Suddenly the DNA revelation was no longer just a relationship crisis. Someone was actively trying to keep Dylan's biological identity secret. The second test. Bill immediately wanted security involved, but Dylan panicked. No police. Not yet. You don't get to make that call when my son could be involved, Bill said. Will looked at her. Am I in danger? She hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. Bill ordered Will to leave with him, but Will refused. Not until she answers. Dylan finally whispered, I don't think they want to hurt you. I think they're afraid of what happens if the truth comes out. What truth? Wyatt demanded. She looked at the report in his hands. That one's only part of it. What does that mean? There was another test. The room went dead silent. Will looked exhausted by the revelations. Another DNA test? Dylan nodded. Where is it? I hid it. Why? Because that one identifies the connection much more clearly. Where is the report? She wiped her face. In my apartment. Bill said they'd retrieve it immediately, but Dylan shook her head. It might already be gone. Why? Wyatt asked. Because somebody broke into my apartment 2 nights ago. Will's anger returned instantly. And you didn't tell me? I didn't want you involved. You don't get it, Dylan. Every time you say you were protecting me, what I hear is that you made another decision for me. She had no response. He turned toward the door. Will, she cried. He stopped but didn't turn around. I love you. His shoulders stiffened. Nobody moved. Finally, he looked back at her. I love you too. Her eyes widened with hope, until he finished the sentence. But I don't trust you anymore. He walked out. The sample that was already waiting. Dylan collapsed into a chair, crying as Katie moved instinctively toward her. Bill followed his son out. Wyatt stayed behind, staring at the report. Electra lingered near the doorway, conflicted. She'd imagined Dylan out of Will's life before, but seeing him this devastated gave her no satisfaction at all. Wyatt looked down at the genetic results again. Something bothered him. He went back to the laboratory reference numbers and noticed the sample identification didn't follow the sequence he expected. He checked the paperwork again, then turned to Dylan. When exactly was your sample collected? She told him. Wyatt frowned. That's impossible. What? Katie asked. He pointed at the page. This report says the comparison sample was already in the lab system before Dylan's sample was even submitted. Dylan slowly stood. What are you saying? I'm saying somebody was expecting your DNA. A chill moved through the room. Wyatt called the laboratory. After several tense minutes, he learned something that made him stare at Dylan in disbelief. The comparison sample hadn't been submitted under his request at all. Someone else had ordered a DNA comparison involving Dylan long before Wyatt ever began investigating. Who? Katie asked. Wyatt looked shaken. The lab won't tell me without authorization. Dylan went pale. I think I know. She hurried to her bag and pulled out an old photograph she'd carried for years. On the back was a handwritten name and date. Wyatt took it and immediately recognized the surname. His expression changed. Katie watched him look toward the hallway where Will had disappeared. If this means what I think it means, he said quietly, Will needs to know. Meanwhile, Will had reached the parking area, Bill following close behind. Bill tried to convince his son that ending things with Dylan was the right call, at least until they understood the danger she was tied to. Will finally rounded on him. Stop telling me what I should feel. Bill fell quiet. I'm furious at her, Will said, his voice breaking. But I still love her. Do you understand how much I hate that right now? Bill's expression softened, and for once he said nothing. Will wiped angrily at his eyes, standing alone in the parking lot with the weight of everything that had just happened. The DNA, the threat, the second test still hidden somewhere, and the woman he couldn't decide whether to walk away from or run back to.